1937, the release of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It was a huge gamble for Walt Disney. The naysayers of Tinseltown said that this was going to be a flop. Maybe it was even the end of Walt Disney Studios. And they were all proven wrong when this became a huge box office success. And till this day, the movie retains a cast iron reputation of being a landmark movie, an immortal classic, and being one of the best movies of all time, being one of the best movies in the history of the Disney animated classics. However, is the movie worth all of these accolades, or is it a movie that is past its expiration date and is just being praised for its craftsmanship alone? That's what we're gonna find out today. The movie of today is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The plot of this movie, I think you can fit on a napkin and write it with a, pretty big Sharpie. It's basically, Snow White lives in a castle and she waits for her prince, and the queen gets jealous because she's not the fairest in the land. So says the mirror, so she, commands the huntsman to go out and ice Snow White and basically bring her heart back in a box. But the huntsman cannot do it. And Snow White ends up in a cottage where the Seven Dwarfs live in. They're miners and they're having probably the worst security ever in their hugely successful mine, just filled to the brim with gemstones. I think that the sequence where they lock the mine and then put the key right next to the door is pretty freaking hilarious. So, she lives there and, becomes their guardian, housekeeper, mom, sort of. The queen, however, finds out this and turns herself into the old crone and, goes out there with a poison apple. You know the story. Now, if you want to talk about the craftsmanship of this movie, it is absolutely off the walls. These hand-drawn individual pieces of animation is freaking amazing. The colors, the contrasts, it is a wonder to behold. It's so beautiful that you could basically have every frame be a painting and it would fucking look boss. So far, so good. Now, the story, as I said, not very impressive, fit on a small napkin. I mean, we have, 11 characters? The huntsman, Snow White, the prince, and the queen, and 7 dwarfs. That's 11 people. Not a lot. We have some, woodland creatures that are cute and everything, but we don't have a vast gallery of characters. And we have 8 songs, I think, and it feels like they're just there to pad out the runtime. When I saw this movie for the first time, we'll get to that in a second, that was 2010. That was the first time I saw it. I was sitting there thinking, this movie is amazing to look at, but there is not a lot happening here, and Snow White she doesn't really have a character. She just waits for her prince and is a very nice person. She's very wholesome and very pleasant and, but she doesn't do anything. She doesn't seem to want anything. However, that would come back to benefit this movie in the most unusual way possible. The dwarfs are fun and, they have their sticks and, they have their songs, hi ho, we're from our mine we go, and all that stuff. It's great. But I got really impatient at times. You're just, having these montages of them, of cleaning and, the dwarfs don't want to take a bath and stuff like that. Not a lot going on here. And I was sitting there and being a little bit grumpy. And, despite the fantastic animation and despite the historical landmark of the whole thing, I was sitting there and being a little, movie just meandering around. I'm not really feeling the historical significance of this movie. But then came the ending. Then came the last, 13, 14 minutes of this movie, maybe a little bit more, because when Snow White, you know, dies, big spoilers there from the poisoned apple, everything from that is completely spellbinding. And for 29 years, this movie had the best final 10 minutes in cinema history. It was not until The Good, the Bad and the Ugly came and said, I'll see your dead Snow White and I can top that with this freaking jewel in this freaking cemetery. But enough about that weird little, you know, cross-pollinations of stuff. The Good, the Bad and the Ugly and Snow White. I will enter some spoiler territory here, but seriously, if you haven't seen it at this point, you probably know it anyway. I knew it going in, and that was still so impactful that it was totally amazing. Because I was sitting there, I was watching the movie, I was being a bit jaded. I mean, not like Daria jaded, but, you know, pretty unimpressed with the whole thing. And then Snow White is dead. And the sequence when the dwarfs are mourning her, I was sitting there going, oh God, because here is where the genius comes in. The ending, the final 15, 20, 12, I don't know how many minutes it is of this movie, is fueled by pure, raw emotions. And what happened? Well, because you have a character that is purely good, that is wholesome and nice and have never done anything to anybody, who has never meant any harm to anybody, and she's just whacked by, you know, the queen. We'll get to her in a second. How could you do this, you fucking bitch? I noticed when I saw this movie for the first time that there was something in my eyes. There was, you know, a lot of onions I had been cutting, I thought, and then when Buttercup turned his head away and, you know, completely gave up and just started losing, I was like, oh my God. And it was good this movie was waterproof, because my tears was probably going to freaking drown it. I cried like a baby. And when the prince comes and wakes her up, and, you know, they never share a, you know, line, or they never have, you know, anything really going for himself. He's gone for almost the entire movie, just shows up for the last 5 minutes, and he wakes her up and she rises, she gets up on his horse, and they, you know, go away to the magical kingdom and stuff like that. And it goes from the saddest thing you could ever, you know, imagine, and, you know, they're really, really, really mourning for her, the dwarfs, and they have been so happy and so cheerful, and now they're so gloomy and they're so incredibly sad. And when she wakes up, they just turn super happy, and it is just goes from the saddest part in cinema history to the happiest part in cinema history. And that thing spoke to me in some way. I had no idea that that was going to be the case. So this movie pulled out a Hail Mary if I've ever seen one with that finish. It was so impactful that I've never seen anything quite like it before or since. It is a fucking masterpiece. I rewatched it around 4 years later, and the same thing happened again. I just, you know, the tears started to flow, and I was like, oh God, it's happening again. When I rewatched the movie a couple of days before Christmas, the same damn thing happened again. And I just imagined, Walt Disney, you're a fucking genius. As I said, this movie pulled out the greatest Hail Mary of all time when it comes to movie making. And in my humble opinion, this is the best Disney animated classic of all time. Despite not having that, you know, big cast, or not having the best voiceovers, or, you know, having the best songs or anything like that, because of the last 10 to 15 to 20 minutes, it is just fantastic. And when it comes to the villains, I think the Queen has a great look to her, and, you know, her motivation, silly as they are, I think still works, even though you can question about a monarch like this Queen that has a magic mirror who is all-knowing, all-seeing. uses it as a hot or not? I don't know either. Would I recommend this movie? Yes, I would. It is the greatest Disney animated movie of all time. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the Disney animated movies, but I think they have pulled off a half a dozen or maybe 10 movies that I would consider absolutely masterclass level. But has it aged? Mostly with the voice acting, I would say. But apart from that, I still think that they have some pretty okay songs. They have some fantastic animation, and the movie is all around looking great, but has a bit of a sluggish pace and not a lot happening until we get to the, you know, chasing the queen and the Snow White's dead and the mourning of her and the music of that sequence. Jesus Christ, that's where they get you. If they would have played a dumb pop song or something like that, mood killer, big time. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is not only a classic, it is also a landmark win for animation. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is an immortal classic. I give this movie 90 points. Amazing animation, fantastic character design, fantastic backgrounds, everything looks so snug. And while, despite the movie's sluggish start, the ending still gets me every single time I see it. It is a super classic, and I think it still holds up. So I'll see you next time from, well, so and so, reviewing, well, such and such. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.